Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Welcome, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Cooperative.
This morning, we have the absolute pleasure of talking to Kali Akuno, who's the director of the Cooperation Jackson in Jackson, Mississippi. Good morning, Kali.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Good. Glad you could make it this morning. I know I'd listened to you on other shows and it seemed like you were having technological troubles in Jackson.
A little bit of trouble. You know, our fair city is dealing with decades of divestment, largely due to ongoing racial inequities that are being, made acutely worse, by the politics that are dominating our state and beginning to dominate the United States. And that results in, a dilapidated infrastructure due to just decades of neglect from there not being adequate funding. Even when funding was more than available, and that is now showing up in this day and age with tremendous problems with our water system, but also because of freezes, some energy outages that have hampered the city. So yeah, we're dealing with our fair issue of infrastructure challenges and crisis, and trying to find a way to meet our community's needs, with a limited amount of resources being made available to us, particularly from the state government. But, I can say I think most of the community is up to the challenge, and folks are trying to figure out ways, both on their own and various efforts collectively, to kind of deal with it. But we got some challenges ahead, no question.
What's the population of blacks in Jackson? What's the population in Jackson, period, and what's the percentage or population of blacks?
Well, let me put it this way, Brian. If you believe the U.S. Census,
okay,
the population is roughly 170,000 people, of which about 162,000 of those would be black people. So Jackson is overwhelmingly black. It's one of the blackest cities in the country. But, there's both concrete census data and anecdotal data that we can point to that our city is beginning to shrink somewhat rapidly. But then there's also signs and evidence that certain populations are growing. So we don't really know. Let me be real. I don't think any city actually knows the exact number, but in our case, we kind of got two kind of competing dynamics. Just so your audience understands, you got this infrastructure crisis, particularly again with the water, which I think it was forcing a lot of residents to make a choice, particularly those who have children. Do I want to deal with having to deal with boil water notices and not knowing, if the water is drinkable at any given day, and the health hazards that poses. So, and that's mainly black folks who I think are making that choice, and we're starting to see some evidence of particularly kind of working class black folks, making some hard choices to try to leave. And mainly right now, they're kind of going out to some of the suburbs where there's some severe housing crisis. So that's not going to be a long-term solution for anybody. But then we also dealing with an increased number of migrants, Latino migrants in particular, coming in because they've been chased out of Florida and some of the other states with these real xenophobic legislation that was passed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically forcing a lot of migrant workers to leave the state for their own safety and security, and a good number of those folks have come to Mississippi in numbers that we haven't normally seen. The Latino population in Jackson and Mississippi historically has been fairly low, primarily because the working conditions are such in large parts of Mississippi, particularly up in the Delta. The large agricultural plantations is what they basically are, and the food processing plants. They can pay back workers basically the same wages they can pay, a migrant worker. So there was no great incentive to bring in cheaper labor, and the cheaper labor that was coming in found better access to be able to make a living by going further east to Georgia or to Florida or North Carolina, where their kind of agriculture policy was more welcoming to migrant workers. But that door seems to be closing, so we have a new influx of folks coming into Mississippi from Georgia and Florida in particular, mainly Florida. This is what we know from us doing a lot of outreach in these communities and trying to work and be in some solidarity with folks. The vast majority of folks that we come in contact with are from Florida, and listen to a lot of their horror stories. But it's not clear, whether they will stay. Right? Because the state of Mississippi is following basically ALEC, in adopting copycat legislation similar to or is proposing to adopt copycat legislation similar to what Florida has, which will probably chase a good number of migrant workers away. Now, that won't have the same impact in Mississippi that we see it happening in Florida. In Florida, you got a lot of, major agricultural players who are now complaining to Ron DeSantis and the Republican Party about, y'all are hurting the economy by chasing away the labor force. In Mississippi, they can rely on the cheap black labor. So it may not have the same impact here, I would reckon. But, it's a state and a city in transition.
So let's talk about Cooperation Jackson. When was it formed and how many co-ops are functioning now?
May 1st, 2024 will be our official 10-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. At the end of the day, we even the parts that weren't so beautiful, you kind of reflect upon and appreciate still being here. Now, where we're at, the first major institution we should let everybody know that really anchors a lot of what we do is our community land trust, the Fanduel Hamburg Community Land Trust. And that has a total of 46 properties in it, of which there are 4 major commercial sites, including the Balagoon Center, which is our main kind of operating office. And we are in the midst of doing a major overhaul of the Ida B. Wells Plaza as we speak. The construction on that has started so that we can open up the People's Grocery, the Eversville print shop, which is a kind of a splinter off, if you will, from the community production cooperative to specialize in on like T-shirt printing, some small 3D printing, but also banners and things of that nature. That piece is growing to the demand that the CPC was getting and needing to actually expand. But it's forming into its own co-op. So, and then there'll be a medicinal cannabis dispensary that's also opening up there. So, in effect, that's going to be 4 new co-ops that'll be open by 2025. The grocery store at this point will probably be early 2025. And we're really looking forward to that one because we made some tremendous progress on the development of that. We bought the facility the plaza. We bought that in 2018. We had plans to open that in 2020. They were going great. And then we got hit with COVID. Yep. And we basically had to start all over again, pretty much from scratch. And that's taken us 3 years to really pull everything together and the resource and financing all of that together. So now we're on pace to get that open. So that'll be 4 new co-ops. And that's in addition to Freedom Farms, which is our urban farming cooperative, also the community production cooperative, and our Green Team cooperative. So those are the ones who, survived, following the hardcore piece of the pandemic. A few other pieces struggled and didn't die, but struggled. And the one that's struggling right now that we're trying to do some adjustment with, primarily as our zero waste cooperative, and that does recycling and composting. And then there's a couple of things that we call kind of production units. Like, they aren't full co-ops by our definition, but they do a tremendous amount of seasonal work. And so one of those is a catering cooperative that most of its seasonal work is spring through the fall, and that's called Evers Catering, named after Medgar Evers, and the Eversville is also named after Medgar Evers, one of our historical champions. And it's actually, the Eversville is a piece that we are one of a long-standing kind of coalitional effort to get the city to change its name from Jackson, which is in honor of Andrew Jackson, which, if folks should notice, wasn't the most kindest historical character to Black and indigenous people, and to change it to Medgar Evers, or Eversville. So that's why those two things are named in that particular way, to both do some education, some promoting, but to also, lift our people up in our tremendous history. So that's where we are. Right now, like a lot of small businesses, we had to adjust to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that kind to us. A lot of things in the market kind of slowed down. That had an impact on us. But I think our strategy, particularly why I wanted to start with the community land trust piece, because all those businesses operate on community land trust property. And what we were basically able to do, like working in solidarity and collaboration with us, with our model, is contingent upon being able to provide virtually rent-free access to these facilities, right, to each of these co-ops.
Rent-free?
Virtually rent-free. Now, people have to pay each entity has to pay the taxes on the building, mm-hmm. They have to pay their own utilities, and they have to work, with the community land trust to work on any kind of improvements. But right now, the lion's share of kind of any kind of improvements or repair comes directly from the community land trust. But that's improving. But what that does, and what it was designed to do, was to give our businesses a kind of historic advantage, if you would, knowing that a lot of small businesses, right, be they co-op or otherwise, just single proprietor or family-owned LLCs, a lot of our businesses in particular struggle because our folks basically struggle with rent at places that they don't own. So
let's stop there and take a break, and we'll come back after the break. But you're absolutely right when you start talking about the cost of startup a business, that rent is high next to labor. They're one and two in terms of cost. But we'll be right back, everybody. We're talking about Jackson, Mississippi, and Cooperation Jackson. Kali, this is Black History Month, and ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, has the 2024 theme of African Americans and the Arts. So my question to you is, have you all, you've just given us about 9 different co-ops that you're working on or have already started or working to get started. Have you looked at any art kinds of co-ops, music or paintings, any kind of art co-ops in Jackson?
We have a arts collective, and we've definitely looked at that and are still aiming to do that. Unfortunately, one of the things that we were hoping to do, there's a facility that's right around the corner from us, which is operated as a local, this is from our Balagoon Center, it's operated as a local nightclub, and it was up for sale for some years, but the brother was reluctant to sell it. We were trying to purchase that, to turn it into a studio. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, because, brother's a member of the community, but he sold it to a family member who's keeping it as a club. So we are in search of looking for another facility in our community to actually turn into an art studio. The collective is right now operating out of the Amari Obadeli Community Production Center. And we throw basically two major kind of art gallery type sessions. One for Black August that we've been doing now for the past 8 years, and the other is around Juneteenth, which we've been doing annually now the last 4 years. And what the collective does is basically put on a mini festival during these events, wherein we highlight local artists, rappers, singers, other creatives, but with the anchor being digital art, right? Because we have a strong component of digital artists who operate within our cooperatives, right? The print shop is Brother Kwame is one of the most noted artists around, and Brother Shambe, who's the head of our organizing team, is also a renowned local artist, and they are part of this collective, which is working towards this long-term peace. And what we want to be able to do is have both a recording studio for local talent. We want to have a audio-visual component to that, and then we want to have like a stage kind of theater space. So this particular kind of space that we're looking for are going to have to build out. But this is a critical piece of our long-term vision. And one of the things that we are noted for in our area, we've done several beautification campaigns, as we call them. And if you come to our space, all of our facilities, commercial facilities, have murals on them, right? Big, beautiful murals that you can see, being promoted by the city and other folks that we've contributed to. The largest ones being like, the Ida B. Wells Plaza, where the grocery store and everything is outlined. We've already got some murals up that have now been up for about 4 years on that space. They were done in 2019. And we have a big, beautiful one of there that was done by a local artist and member and former worker with the CPC, the Community Production Cooperative, Sabrina, who's also a profound local artist. She did a big, beautiful piece of Harriet Tubman. Right next to that is another a brother who came from Memphis, Tennessee, but has some roots in Jackson. He came and did one, which is Fannie Lou Hamer on a freedom boat. And there's several of them just kind of decked out all throughout that. I consider myself a child of the Black Arts movement. One of the people that, I had the pleasure of knowing and growing up around on many occasions was the great Amiri Baraka. For those who don't know, Amiri was kind of the Black Nation's poet laureate, based out of Newark, Mississippi, and poet, artist, performer. So I grew up, in and around that, and went to, Shule and some other stuff as a kid to learn art. And I'm a graphic artist myself, right?
Okay.
As well as, I've done some music production in my day, working with a group that was once known as Soul Sides or Quantum Projects. As just one of the key founders and thinkers of this, the arts have always been central to me and always been kind of implicit in what we want to do. Because primarily, we are in the business of promoting Black is beautiful.
It is.
And we got to lay that foundation for future generations so people will not only see themselves represented in their own community, but see themselves, in the best and positive light and one that we want to portray. If you come to a lot of our stuff, our crew is a heavy Afrofuturist crew, and a lot of our art is very much kind of both within that mode, but also within a lot of our folks have been deeply inspired both by the Black Arts movement and the Harlem Renaissance. So our crew is very up on this and is very much incorporating it to what we're doing. And one of the things that, we long-term vision, that we are very much in line with, kind of like the present city's leadership with, is, Jackson has a rich history, particularly with the blues. And there's some noted blues clubs. There were several Black-owned blues record companies based in Jackson, some of which have long since passed. But it's one of your noted blues stops. And we want to highlight that history. And one of the things that we want to do is to actually develop a marketing and promotion co-op that brings more artists and attention into Jackson. And so, folks like David Banner and some other folks are also thinking likewise, and that's something there's a broad conversation about doing that we are a part of, that I think in the course of the next couple of years, you'll see some big things coming out of Jackson, on the arts and entertainment front.
So as you were talking about the murals, I was going, that could be a tourist attraction. Just
already is.
It is.
Already becoming, yeah.
All right. So when can I come down and see the murals? Should I have to wait to August or Juneteenth or?
No. Just give us a heads up, and the doors are open. I heard you earlier saying that, you want some warmer weather. So, I would say if you want to try that, maybe come down April, May before it gets really, really hot and humid. But if you like it hot and humid, come on through in June, July, and August. For me, I like it hot and humid. That's some of the best times to both be out in the community and, partake in all the richness of what Jackson has to offer.
Are you talking about barbecuing now? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, barbecuing.
Is that what you said?
Get you some good pan trout or get you some good catfish. I don't eat pork, but if that's your thing,
it's not.
Jackson is not going to disappoint you.
No, it's not. But that fried cornbread and collard greens, I mean, that'll do it with them.
You'll be all right. We'll take care of you on that front. No problem.
So when we talk about art, often we don't put food in that category.
That's right.
But that's a big piece of art, but not only the art of how it looks when it's presented, but how it affects the body. What it does for the body is food is medicine and all of that, but food is art. I want to tell you a quick story because I grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia. And Bluefield's coal mining country, maybe at the height it may have had 20% blacks working the mines. My grandfather worked in the mines. My father worked on the railroad, and I did a couple years while I was in college work on the railroad. But in college, at Bluefield State College, historically black college, I was the president of the student body in 68-69 school year. And somebody in the 67-68 school year had invited this group down to perform. And the current student body didn't know about it, but I went there as the president because I had to pay them. So I'm on stage behind the curtain watching these people fly through the air. And see, I played football through a couple years in college, and I thought football players were it. But when I watched the Alvin Ailey dance troupe, when I watched these black folk just all that they could do with their body, I was mesmerized, man. When you talk about art, and it's like it just blew me away of what they could do with their bodies attuned to music. So you mentioned Harlem Renaissance, but going to New York to see Alvin Ailey was just a highlight after that too. Anytime I could see them, and they'll be in D.C. in February. Or this month, they'll be here. I haven't gotten tickets yet, but I try to go down to see them at the Kennedy Center. But it's amazing of what we can do. And Judith Jameson had a Revelation was the name of her the piece. It was always the last piece of the show, where she had an umbrella and she was dancing with this umbrella. So what we can do with the arts as black folks is just absolutely amazing. And I had no idea that Jackson has this rich history. Yeah, it makes me want to come even more, man.
Yeah. Well, come on, though. It's a very rich history, There's some work in that regard that we've been struggling to do. There's a district that we've been trying to get, many players have been trying to get up off the ground. But I think there's some major motion towards that end, which is a street in downtown where, that was kind of the center of black life in the 30s, 40s, and 50s in particular. and it's where many of those record companies were situated I was mentioning earlier. So that piece is really starting to move, but also highlighting a number of different things, in the city. And one of the things that city I think has benefited from, it was many years in the making and a lot of fight and struggle to get there, but they are these what they call the two museums, right? The Black Museum and the Mississippi, General History Museum that's in downtown Jackson. And it does a fairly good representation, not because, the powers that be wanted it that way, but because folks struggled to make sure that a real history of Fannie Lou Hamer and Medgar Evers and the Republic of New Africa, like all those things were told. But that is also now, I think successfully drawing in more interest into the deep history of Jackson, for the history of the struggle in the city, of our people struggle in the city, but also the culture that we created to make meaning and bring joy to our lives. So
Amen.
Definitely come check that out.
Amen. Yeah, I want to check out that museum. It made highlights when a certain president went to visit it, but I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
I did Fannie Lou Hamer. I see this video of her saying, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired."
Sick and tired.
Yeah. Yeah, she's one of my heroines. Okay, sir. What, if anything, is keeping you from producing more co-ops or having successful co-ops?
Finance is always a challenge. That's a challenge regardless, I think, anywhere. But outside of that, for us, is really just trying to figure out this kind of, where we are right now, is really trying to just figure out this post-pandemic, if you want to call it that. I mean, the pandemic is not fully done with us yet because, I think it's endemic to our species now. We're actually going through a pretty big wave of it, and a respiratory virus has been hitting Jackson hard the last, in January. We'll see how it keeps going in February. But, there are ways in which social habits in the market have changed that we have to change around. The level of kind of an overall engagement, people coming out to do things, to shop, that has been drastically reduced. We can tell you from our business, since the pandemic, and we know that there's a greater reliance on online shopping now, which kind of got baked into on a new level, higher level, because of the pandemic and people, staying in place and working from home. Mm-hmm. So, I found all these stories, and you can see it kind of anecdotally with, the grocery stores and other retail stores closing earlier, challenges finding workers. We've had our own experience with that. And so, we are trying to think of ways in which we keep extenuating the local ecosystem and the relations of production that'll build strength in our community and build relationships in our community. But I got to tell you, we are working counter towards the major kind of trends of everything going online. And this is not just impacting us. You starting to, from everything I'm hearing, reading, I read The Economist, I read Wall Street Journal, I keep up on these things. And, there's a lot of, just evidence around how Amazon in particular is dominating the market in such a way that it is just basically restructuring the market, setting prices and, not in accord with the law of supply and demand such as it is. But, they are demanding that producers, they'll sell prices and they're getting it, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of where more of the market is structured. And then in other ways in which this is showing up, we have far more vacancies at like the retail shops all throughout town. And I see this when I travel to other cities. I'm seeing a lot of other major retails and moms and pops, like there are far more vacancies, but all the evidence is like the economy is rebounding and inflation's coming under control. But, a lot of that is very clearly, the market being restructured around this digital kind of infrastructure. And local businesses, ours included, are going to have to figure out how to deal with that going forward. I think we have a strength in that we've concentrated, around food sovereignty, food production, and ecologically kind of sustainable pieces that kind of everybody needs because they're still, kind of consuming. But for us, we got to make a choice. Do we need to build up our digital infrastructure such that people can just buy products online, from us, from like our CPC in terms of t-shirts or prints or furniture and equipment, things like that, which we're doing and want to scale up. Because that means, just so folks are clear, that means you don't have to keep, the kind of the physical interface of having a public audience coming to your door buying from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just build out for more space for productive, kind of capacity. Now, I think we can do that in the short term, but what that also means, if you don't have people engaged in kind of retail work and activity, and the increase in, automation and digitization of everything, that could be a serious reckoning for black folks. Because that means that, we the first ones to, all saying, last one's hired, first one's fired. And so these trends, and automation has been having an impact on the black community, since the 50s in different ways. But we're starting to see a spike that we're going to have to adjust to. So for us, Vernon, these are the big challenges that we kind of have to adjust to. We had I think a solid strategy and plan, and we're executing, I think, in a very healthy way, a very phased kind of development piece, before the pandemic. Now we're trying to adjust, so folks understand what I mean. Like with the grocery store, if the grocery stores become, if Amazon, again, through like Whole Foods, if that becomes the norm and the trend and people not going into the stores, we then have to figure out, well, what is our niche to get people in our local community to come into the store, or we're going to have to figure out how do we adjust in such a way that we just become more like a food processing unit and a warehouse, and then, develop a corresponding delivery system, so that we can compete and stay afloat. And these are strategic choices that we got to make, which affect what type of capital are we trying to, appeal to? What type of decisions are we trying to make? What debt burdens do we assume? So we're in a very kind of weird space right now, post-pandemic, that I don't think we're alone in by far. But I can tell you, we thinking long and hard about what this next 5 to 10 years is going to be, because we kind of thought, once things open up, things were going to bounce back, and that proved to be an erroneous assumption. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Freedom Farms Cooperative, how many acres do you all farm?
Currently, we're farming 5 acres in the city, but we're about to expand to we have access and partially own a 200-acre plot. And we're already starting to we're doing the soil remediation. We just got access to this at the end of 2022, so we're doing a lot of soil remediation. Because part of what we are aiming to do, again, long-term thinking and planning, is convert a good portion of that to growing hemp. And again, not cannabis, but hemp, that we can make clothes, we can make oils, we can make concrete building materials and things out of, because we're trying to integrate a long-term ecologically sustainable strategy. And the thing that we want to support with that is also, making basically a bamboo forest that would accompany us, would kind of be intertwined with this. Again, we're thinking about how do we supply our own resource needs for construction work, which, be it for housing or be it some of the furniture or the things that we aim to do with this small manufacturing site that we have with the CPC. So a big part of that is being set up to do that. Then the other part of that, there will be some cannabis grown, there, but the other part is we want to really expand out, particularly in the sale of kale, collard greens, and mustard greens. Those are the best sellers that
you just hit my heart with kale, collard greens, and mustard. Okay. Yeah. Kale and mustard together are phenomenal. Okay. So 205 acres. Is there still land available down in your area?
Oh yeah, there's still land available, and as I was saying, with some of these population shifts and dynamics and market shifts, more stuff is opening up, particularly commercial retail stuff. But I would caution, have a plan to think about where this economy is going and shifting if you want to get into that. Because we were very much in ourselves. So folks learn from our history. Our first 6 years in particular was trying to, and we did a fair job. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we were very keen on trying to secure as much land as possible in the community in an effort, kind of decommodify it and make sure it stayed in community hands so that our people and our interests don't get gentrified out. Mm-hmm. And we made a definite decent impact on that. But some of the shifts that are happening, we slowed down purchasing, even before the pandemic on land. And now, there's some things that have come online that we want to get, but we have to make sure in the long term, the money's going to work. Just put it plainly, and that we don't buy something that winds up becoming a burden on us and a burden on the community because we can't develop it, right? And the way in which we've approached our development piece, it's a slow growth. It's not like we're going to just build a whole bunch of houses immediately, because we try to be very clear about who and how we take money. And to this point, our strength is that, it's both a strength and a weakness. Our strength is that everything that we own outright. We don't have one penny of debt to anybody.
All I can say is amen, bro. But Kali, we only have a minute left. I want to have you back on another time. But what message would you like to leave people with, particularly for the future?
We got to dig in. We got a lot of work to do. The basic thing I just want to say is, particularly to black people, take the climate threat real, because it is, and let's start doing some long-term planning on figuring out how we are going to address this to make sure we will be around and are able to affect a just transition to make the change that we want, so that future generations can be here and enjoy the planet as we have.
Future generations, bro. Okay, got it. Everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.